episode 218. We're talking week 3 NFL picks. Joined again by Jacob Kamenker from NBC Sports Boston. How's it going, Jacob?
I'm doing good. How about you, Walt?
Doing good. As I was saying before we started recording, I wish I wouldn't pick every Super Bowl winning quarterback to get injured this year, but otherwise, I've been doing fine. How's your week 2 pick slate?
My week 2 picks did pretty well. Bounced back from the 5-10-1 in the first week. All the games I actually bet on were winners, except for the Jets-Browns, but I had locked that in before we knew Sam Darnold was out. But I went 9-7, so I was pretty happy with that. Pretty big improvement, and so some of my bigger plays like Cardinals against the Ravens came through. So I was very glad about that one in particular.
Yeah, that was a nice one. The Cardinals almost won. If they convert in the red zone, maybe they pull out the victory there. I went 10-6 overall, pick of the month with the Packers cash, so that was nice. Unfortunately, I bet the Steelers at -3.5, and then Roethlisberger wasn't the same. Like, I know he left the game in halftime, but like throughout the whole game, he was just terrible. He couldn't complete basic passes, just bad overall. But otherwise, not a bad week. So excited to move on. And as I said last week, week 2, I like the week 2 slate a lot more than week 1, and I like this week 3 slate just as much as week 2. So I'm hoping for another good week here. So I might as well start off. Titans at Jaguars, very exciting Thursday night game. It seems like every year these teams play on Thursday night for some reason. I guess NFL Network thinks people like it. But yeah, the Titans are at the Jaguars. Let's see. The Titans actually opened up as 1.5 point favorites, 2.5 point favorites, down to 1.5. So who do you like this game?
So I'm pretty torn on this game. I think it could go either way. Like you said, these teams have met a ton on Thursday Night Football. I think since 2014, they've met 4 times. They're each this is not against the spread, but they're each 2-2, and the home team has won every single game. So I'm leaning a bit towards the Jaguars, even though I know they have Gardner Minshew. They don't look very good on offense, but their defense was able to contain Deshaun Watson and the Texans last week. They really almost came within a couple inches of winning that game when Leonard Fournette was stopped just shy of the goal line with that 2-point conversion to go up. I think Doug Marrone's going to stay aggressive. And if you just look at Thursday night game trends over the last 3 years, the home team tends to win. The record of the home team in each of the last 3 seasons has been 10-4 in 2018, 7-7 in 2017, and 10-4 in 2016. I know we're off to an 0-1 start in that category because the Panthers lost, but they had Cam Newton banged up, so I'm not reading too much into that. But yeah, I like Minshew to keep this close and maybe eke out a last-second win for the Jaguars and start building that legend a little bit more.
Yeah. Speaking of quarterbacks being banged up, Marcus Mariota showed up on the injury report with a quad injury. They're saying it's not serious, but after what happened with Cam Newton, they said that wasn't a big deal, and yeah, he can't scramble. So I don't want to write that off. I think that's something to consider. I wouldn't bet blindly on the Jaguars just because of that, but it's enough to keep me off Tennessee. I know the Jaguars have Gardner Minshew. He's not very good, but I think I'm going to be on them. Also, I would consider that the Jaguars, this is kind of a revenge spot for them. Last year, late in the year, they got blown out by the Titans. Derrick Henry had a huge game. So I think this is a case where the Jaguars can get some revenge. But I'm not crazy about it. I'm not going to bet this game.
Yeah, it's definitely one I'm not going to look to bet. Even though it's a Thursday night game and it's the only one on the slate, I can't convince myself to bet on a Gardner Minshew-led squad just yet. And like you mentioned, Mariota being hurt has a massive impact on Tennessee because we all saw what it was like last year when his elbow was bugging him and he couldn't throw the ball. Granted, this is a different injury, but if he can't scramble, that's going to take away one of the things he's really good at. And if that happens and they become one-dimensional, that Jaguars defense is good enough to slow down the Titans.
Yeah, not surprised at all to see Marcus Mariota showed up in the injury report. Seems like it happens all the time. But yeah, hopefully he's okay. I like him as a player, but it just seems like he's always hurt, and it wouldn't surprise me if he's just limited here. So let's move on to Sunday. Broncos at Packers. I definitely have interest in this one. The Packers open up -7, up to 7.5 or 8, depending on where you look. So who do you like in this game?
So I'm actually leaning on the Packers in this one. That may go a little bit against the grain. I don't know what your thoughts are going to be on that one, but the Packers just beat two of the best defenses in the NFL, and the Bears and the Vikings. And I know the Bears defense isn't quite as good as it was last year, and they only scored 10 points against them. And they were held scoreless, I think, after going up 21-0 against the Vikings. But I think that they're going to kind of finally put it together on offense this week. They're playing a good defense in Denver, so I mean it's a tough start to their season, but they seem to figure out how to better utilize Aaron Jones in the running game last week. And the Broncos, just over the past 2 years in early games in the early slate, they were 1-7 overall. So I think that the Packers will win this game outright. I could see a case being made for the Broncos covering a spread of 7 or fewer points, but I just trust the Packers to put it all together at this point. I don't love this game by any means. I can get why you'd be on the Broncos, but I'd probably put a unit on the Packers in this one. Again, not super confident in that, but I feel like this is the week they finally put their offense together, and that might leave Vic Fangio scrambling a little bit to get some results and prove that, he's better than Vance Joseph, even though the Broncos absolutely should have won last week, and the officiating screwed them out of a win.
That was horrible. That's such bad officiating. I don't know how that's a roughing the passer. It's weird that in week 2, consecutive years that we've had teams just lose games in week 2 of the season just on those penalties. Of course, we had Clay Matthews last year. I like Denver a lot here. So yeah, you mentioned that the Packers didn't score after they got up 21-0, and I wanted to see what happened. So I rewatched that game last night. And something I noticed at the end, I think it was the end of the second half or beginning of the third quarter, I can't remember, but Rodgers, he threw a pass and he hit his hand. And if you're watching a video, you can see this. He kind of went like this, like it was hurting weirdly. And then he never really went deep after that. He tried one deep pass. It was incomplete. He just kind of dinked and dunked after that. He tried to rely on his running game. I don't know if he's injured or not. I don't know if this hand's going to be a problem. Maybe a week off will just render this whole thing moot. But I do think that's a concern for me. If I were thinking about betting the Packers. So I think that's an issue. On top of that, the Packers have to play in 4 days against the Eagles on Thursday Night Football, and teams, especially favorites, with Thursday Night Football coming up, they tend to struggle. So they're not completely focused. We saw the Titans last week against the Colts; they lost outright because of a Thursday night coming up. The week before, the Buccaneers, they lost outright to the 49ers. So I think this could be another scenario where a team just looks ahead to a Thursday night, and then I think the spread's too high considering the Packers haven't posted more than 21 points in a game. I know they play good defenses, but Denver has a good defense as well. So I think the Broncos could keep this close. The Broncos are going to be desperate to avoid an 0-3 start, whereas the Packers, they've had 2 wins over divisional opponents. I think they could take the Broncos, I think they could take them for granted here a little bit, and that could give Denver a chance to cover. So I like the Broncos considerably. I have them for 4 units. And I forgot to mention, there's a lot of money on the Packers, a lot of public money. There's also a lot of public money in the Titans. So I just forgot to mention that.
Yeah, I think you just convinced me that I'm wrong. I'm now officially switching my pick to the Broncos. I completely forgot that the Packers are playing Thursday Night Football against the Eagles. That whole possible that they're going to overlook the Broncos thing makes perfect sense to me. And one of the things that I was harping on a little bit was the Broncos offense hasn't been particularly good either. But so even if this turns into a defensive type struggle, I think the Broncos probably covered the spread. If this spread was closer to 7, I might pick the Packers. But if it's trending in the direction of 8, which you seem to mention that it was, I think I'll switch to the Broncos here. And I promise I won't be switching that much during this pod. But that was what I was torn on, and I'm going to go with the Broncos now. So you convinced me.
Nice. Well, I'm glad to have convinced you here. But yeah, it is 8 at Pinnacle already, and Pinnacle is one of the sharper books on the web. So generally, sportsbooks follow what Pinnacle does, so it might be trending upward. So speaking of teams, heading into that Thursday night game, the Lions are at the Eagles. The spread opened up -7, moved down to 6.5. Looks like some sharp money on the Lions. I actually saw some 7.5s beginning like when the spread was posted. Now it's 6.5. Money's even, but there's a lot of sharp money on Detroit. So who do you like in this game?
I don't see a reason that the Eagles should be favored by close to 7 points at home after how they played to start the season. I mean, they came close to losing to the Redskins. If the Redskins had been able to do anything after halftime with their offense, the Eagles could have possibly lost that game. And they just lost a game late to the Falcons, in a game where the Falcons gave the Eagles a lot of chances to, get back in the game and go for the win, but they couldn't quite do it. Now they're dealing with a ton of receiver injuries, and it looks like Nelson Aguilar and JJ Arcega-Whiteside are going to be their top receiving options. So I'm not liking how their offense is looking, and Detroit has been solid to start the year. They've tied a game and won a game, so they're still technically undefeated, which is pretty unbelievable to me. Solely because in my head I'm like, oh yeah, they lost to the Cardinals, but really they blew that late lead, and they tied a game they should have won, so it felt like a loss, all that fun stuff. But Detroit's 10-8 against the spread with Matt Patricia as the head coach, and the Eagles are dealing with the injuries. Carson Wentz doesn't look right, and he's only 4-3 during his career at home, coming off a road loss. And the Eagles are 9-11 in the last 2 seasons with Wentz against the spread. So I'm going to be going with the Lions in this one. I like them a lot. I'll probably go 3 or 4 units on them, especially if I can find a +7 line. Like if there's one of those out there, that's a no-brainer for 3 units.
Yeah, for sure. It might be hard to find a +7 at this point. I think a Bovada, it might be like +7 -120, but I'm not sure. I'd have to look at that. I locked this in as soon as I saw the sharps were bringing this down. I generally don't do that before I make my write-ups, but I decided that I wanted to do that because I didn't want to miss out on +7. So I got +7 to -115 yesterday. So that line is gone. As I said before, the sharps have been all over the Lions, and I can understand why. The spread's too high, as you said. The Eagles have not played well in either of the games this year, so this is the best opponent they're going to be playing so far. So that doesn't bode well for them. The Lions, as you said, that they're undefeated somehow, but they've added some good players. I mean, they added Trey Flowers. He's gonna have an impact in this game, especially if Jason Peters is not 100%. He's one of like 20 Eagles who got hurt on Sunday Night Football. He only missed 1 snap, but I'm not sure if he's going to be 100%. You mentioned the receivers. They're going to be down to the third and fourth string receivers if Deshaun Jackson's out. We already know Alshon Jeffrey's probably not going to play. On top of that, they lost defensive tackle Timmy Jernigan. So they're going to be down 2 of their top 3 defensive tackles as well. So that could allow Detroit to run the ball pretty effectively. And I think you have to kind of mention that Carson Wentz might not be 100% either. He took a really tough shot to the ribs. He couldn't complete basic passes after that until after halftime. I'm sure they gave him a pain injection. But that's something that could linger. And I'm not sure if he's going to be 100%. So like I've talked about 3 games. We talked about 3 games so far, and we're 3 for 3 on quarterbacks possibly being hurt with Mariota's quad and then Rodgers' hand and now Carson Wentz's ribs. So if Wentz is not 100%, I definitely want to be on Detroit. So with all that in mind, I love Detroit. They're my top pick this week.
Yeah, and have you ever seen like a slate just where there's been so many brutal quarterback injuries impacting things? Like you said, it feels like every game's going to have one of those. And, the rule of thumb for me is almost always pick the healthy quarterback. So it wouldn't even surprise me if the Lions outright win this game. I might put like maybe a half a unit on a money line bet just for fun, but there's no reason to pick Eagles spread here.
Yeah, I agree. We talked about 6 teams so far, and if we're right in if I'm right with Rodgers' hand, there's 4 teams with injured quarterbacks. With Nick Foles also obviously being out for the year, and we haven't even gotten to Drew Brees and Ben Roethlisberger yet. It's insane.
Yeah, it's completely nuts. It's going to be a wild year in the NFL because of all that.
The team that wins the Super Bowl is going to be the team that has its starting quarterback healthy. That's it. That's what it's going to come down to.
Basically.
Yeah. All right. Next game, Ravens at Chiefs. So no quarterback injuries here. The Chiefs open up -6. Actually, it's up to -6.5, -7 at Pinnacle. Public is about even, slight edge to the Ravens. So who do you like here?
I like the Ravens here. I think that +7 number that we're getting close to, I saw it for +7 on Bovada. I like that number a lot. I think the Chiefs are a little bit more vulnerable than people are giving them credit for. I know they've had some explosive performances against the Jaguars and against the Raiders, but people don't realize last week they scored 28 points. That all came in the second quarter. And against the Jaguars were in that game until Nick Foles got hurt, and then things kind of imploded from there. The Jags defense wasn't playing discipline. Miles Jack got ejected, and Minshew was just checking down the whole game. So I think the Chiefs have a vulnerable defense that'll have trouble containing Lamar Jackson. And I think their offense can be slowed down. They can't be entirely stopped. They have Patrick Mahomes after all. But I think the Ravens keep this close. I know Arrowhead's a tough place to play. But especially if that number becomes a +7 for the Ravens, I like it a lot. Even the 6.5, I'll take it. I think this comes down to a late game drive or field goal. Whoever has the ball last is going to win. So I like the Ravens this week.
I think this line's a little too high. Like not too much, but a little bit. I made this line Chiefs -6, so a little bit value there. The advanced spread that Westgate posts was -5.5. The computer model I use has it at -4. DVOA says it should be -4. So it seems like it's a little too high. And at +7, it's definitely way more appealing than +6.5. The 7 is the second most likely outcome of any football game. Yeah, I agree with everything you said. The Ravens should be able to hang with the Chiefs. Kansas City's defense is not very good, obviously. Gardner Minshew went 22-25 against them, and Derek Carr had a 10-0 lead. Not really sure what happened after that, but yeah, the Chiefs are definitely susceptible to to a lot of things on offense, and I don't think they can stop tight end. So Mark Andrews is going to have a big game. He can't stop the run. Mark Ingram is gonna run well, and then you have Lamar Jackson, who I'm still skeptical on, but in an easy matchup, seems like he should be able to do well. I don't think Baltimore's defense isn't I don't think it's not as good as it was in previous years. So I think the Chiefs are going to be able to score a lot, but it still should be a close game. And the Ravens feel like if they need a backdoor touchdown, they could probably get it against Kansas City's defense. So I do like the Ravens, but I don't think I'm going to bet this game. Maybe if it gets to 7 -110, but otherwise, it's probably going to stay off.
Yeah, I'll probably only bet it if it gets to the 7 point there. The other thing that could be an interesting factor here is Lamar Jackson has only lost one regular season start, believe it or not. I was looking at this earlier, and I actually couldn't believe that he'd only lost one regular season game. Just I guess the way they won last year was kind of ugly because they ran so much, but the one loss came to the Chiefs, and they lost that game by 3 points. So in the back of his mind, he might be a little revenge factor there. I don't know if it makes a massive difference or anything, but at the very least, the Ravens kept it close last year. So I think it happens again.
Yeah, I kind of wonder if the Ravens kind of caught the Chiefs off guard last year, and the Chiefs didn't really know what to expect. So I could see the Chiefs having a better game plan for Lamar Jackson this time. But on the other hand, their defense kind of sucks. So I don't know if it's going to make that much of a difference anyway. So yeah, I do think the Ravens are the right side, but I don't think it's a slam dunk, as the public is leaning toward the Ravens. I'm not as enthusiastic. I'm getting an update. Actually, the Chiefs are being bet considerably. So I don't know. Either way, I'm not going to be on this game. Next game, Bengals at the Bills. This line opened up -4. It's actually moved up to -6. A lot of action on the Bills. So who do you like in this game?
I'm on the Bills side this time. I mean, the Bengals, they did well to stay competitive with the Seahawks in that opener. I still can't believe that they almost were able to beat the Seahawks in Seattle. But I think week 2 was more of their true colors. They got crushed at home by the 49ers. They couldn't tackle. Watching that game, that was some of the worst tackling I've seen in a long time. And I think what it boils down to is that first game, they were kind of amped up to let's try to win for Zach Taylor. and then they kind of fell short in that, and they were kind of deflated coming into this next game. The Bills, meanwhile, seem to be an underrated team. They're 2-0 against the spread. I know they haven't played tough teams yet. They played both the New York teams, the Jets and the Giants, but I've liked how their whole team has played. They've come together pretty well. They're riding the running game with Frank Gore and Devin Singletary, though Singletary might not play because of a hamstring injury. That'll be something to watch. And if Josh Allen can keep playing well and avoiding turnovers, they should be in good shape. One interesting stat on Andy Dalton, too. Dalton is 4-11 in his career after suffering either a home loss or tie and then going on the road. So I don't have any faith in the Bengals offense playing well. And Dalton is also like a Buffalo folk hero because he got them into the playoffs with that ridiculous Tyler Boyd pass. So he maybe lets that get to his head a little bit and thinks he's a bit better than he is. But yeah, I'm taking the Bills -6. I'd probably go 2 or 3 units on this game. I'm fairly confident that they'll limit the Bengals and torch their defense.
Yeah, see, to me, I think there's a key injury in this game, and that's going to determine which side I go with. Cordy Glenn has missed the first 2 games with a concussion, and he's so instrumental to that Cincinnati offensive line. With him out, they can't really block all that well. But if Glenn plays, I think they should be able to at least give Andy Dalton a chance. Joe Mixon will have more running lanes. It'll make a huge difference against Jerry Hughes. And I think if they don't have Glenn, they won't be able to block at all. And it might seem a lot like week 2. So I think that's going to make a big difference for me. Right now, I am on the Bengals. I kind of penciled that in, but I could change it. The key thing here for me is, so the Bills, they're off to a 2-0 start. Everyone's hyping them up. The advanced spread in this game was, I believe, it was -4. Now it's up to -6. People like them, as I said. A lot of action on the Bills. The problem is that they play the Patriots next week, so I wonder if they're going to be looking ahead to that. They're going to be reading their press clippings. They're 2-0. Meanwhile, the Bengals are 0-2, and they're going to be desperate to avoid a 0-3 start. So I think the motivation here favors the Bengals. But it really, I can't bet them unless Cordy Glenn plays because he's such a big factor in this matchup. So for me, it's a kind of a stay away for now. But if Glenn gets cleared, if he clears concussion protocol, I probably will be betting the Bengals. If not, then I'm either going to be 0 units either way. But right now, I'm going to be on the Bengals.
Yeah, I can see that case. It's also a technical revenge game for Cordy Glenn since the Bills, I think, signed him to an extension and then traded him very shortly after to the Bengals. That probably doesn't matter at all. He's an offensive lineman, but, I like Cordy Glenn. He's solid. That could definitely swing things a little bit more in favor of the Bengals. As for the looking ahead to the Patriots thing, I'm wondering if we're going to get to a point eventually this season that if the Patriots keep playing like they have, the teams are just kind of like, oh, man, we're probably going to lose that game, so we better win this one now. Because, personally, I feel like that's how it should be in the regular season, like if you're going to play the Patriots. I'm also a New England fan, so I'm very biased in this category. But looking ahead, if they are thinking of themselves as, we could potentially challenge the Patriots, it does make sense that they could overlook the Bengals. So I'm still fairly confident, though, in the Bills. They're one of my favorite teams to bet on this year, so I'm going with them.
Nice. Well, they look great week 2. So, yeah, you could be right about that. You sound more confident than I do about this pick. So I defer to you. But like I said, if Glenn plays, that changes a lot for me. All right, next game, Falcons at Colts. The line opened up Colts -2.5. It's been dropping. It's -1.5 in many books. It's -1 at Pinnacle. There is a lot of public money on the Falcons. So the Falcons are a public dog here. So who do you like in this game?
I hate almost everything about this game. As you know, I've been on the Falcons bandwagon. In fact, the last time you said you should defer to me to a pick was when I had the Falcons over the Vikings in week 1, and we all know how that went. The Falcons are coming off of a win, but really they played pretty poorly for most of that game, or they should have won that game bigger than they did, I guess is my point. Matty Ryan, he has 5 interceptions in 2 games. I don't exactly know why he's thrown some of them. One of them that he had against the Vikings, made me audibly shriek at how bad it was, like the back foot into the end zone trying to throw it away. But at the same time, like he's pretty good in domes. He has a like 500 road record in his career. He's 500 on the road in domes, 8-8 in those scenarios. But the Colts have covered the spread twice. Jacoby Brissett's getting better with more action. And it's just hard for me to pick a team that can't really block and has shown some tackling issues against a more complete team like the Colts. So I'm going with the Colts. I had the Colts -2, but if it's at -1.5, that's pretty good. I'll take that. It's probably a 1-unit bet because this game could swing either way. If Matt Ryan starts playing better, that offense could overwhelm the Colts, and they may not be able to keep pace. But if both teams play as they've played so far, I would favor the Colts.
Yeah, you mentioned the interceptions. He missed 2 touchdowns last week as well. He had guys wide open in the end zone who beat Ronald Darby on consecutive plays, and he just missed them. It doesn't seem like Matt Ryan is clicking all that well. The blocking's not there. So let me ask you this: with keeping in mind that everyone is betting the Falcons, and the Falcons are a public dog, and this line is close to pick'em, which means that I guess the public believes the Falcons are better. Outside of quarterback and receiver, where are the Falcons better than the Colts? Can you think of any position really?
Quarterback and receiver? No, I don't really. I can't really think of anyone. Like maybe safety. You got Keanu Neal, Ricardo Allen against Malik Hooker and Clayton Geathers.
Yeah, it's pretty close.
It's close. I mean, I like Keanu Neal because he's kind of an enforcer type, but you can really make the case either way. Pretty much every other position group would be a landslide victory for the Colts.
Yeah, it really would be. And the Colts have such a better roster than the Falcons, and it's mind-boggling to me that the public is just so eager to bet the Falcons like this. I think the Colts are a much better team, and they should be at least -3. The line I made for this game was Colts -4.5. The computer model I use is Colts -4. So that's above 3. We're getting 3, which is the most common margin in football games. So yeah, I would love the Colts this week. The one question I have about them is Darius Leonard's availability. Leonard is in concussion protocol. So again, this is the second game in a row where my pick might be limited based on a key player being injured. Leonard is so huge for them. I think they're a different defense without him. So he would have to be healthy for me to bet on the Colts considerably. If he's out, I still might bet the Colts like maybe a unit, but probably 0 units. But if Leonard plays, this is going to be a big play for me on Indianapolis.
Yeah, no, Leonard does make a massive difference. It's like the equivalent of the Carolina Panthers a few years ago when Luke Kuechly got the concussion. He comes out, their defense isn't as strong. It's still good, but it's not necessarily good enough to keep pace with an offense that has as much weapons as the Falcons. That could, at any point, if Matt Ryan starts playing efficiently, that team could be a lot better. So, yeah, this game really scares me. If anything, it's 1 unit on the Colts, though. I'm rooting for the Falcons because I bet them to win the Super Bowl, and my other Super Bowl bets are not looking good. So, kind of have to roll with them at this point. But I'll root for them. Bet on the Colts if I bet.
Yeah, Ryan Shazier is another example from the Steelers a couple years ago. When they lost him, their defense just completely imploded. So these do-it-all inside linebackers, I feel like in today's NFL, with all the reads going on, I think you need them. And with Leonard, if Leonard's out, that's such a huge difference. All right, next game, the Raiders at the Vikings. This line opened up -7. It's up to 8.5. The slight edge on the Vikings, not a lot of public action. Looks like the Sharps are actually moving this line. So who do you like in this game?
Yeah, this is another game that I'm not a huge fan of, and for whatever reason, I don't know if it's because of how they played on that Monday night Week 1 game. The Raiders just scare me. I feel like they could at any point just put together a performance that's like, wow, how did they do that? And just keep pace with some of the better teams in the NFL. The Vikings have looked good through 2 weeks. The worst player on their team right now among the starters might be Kirk Cousins, which is kind of hilarious because if you look at I've been writing about the Redskins for 3 years, and everyone at the time he left the team was like, oh, he's not as good as everyone thinks he is, and it's proving to be true. He struggled last week against the Packers and only threw 10 passes when they beat the Falcons. But, I mean, he didn't need to do much to do that. And I don't think the Raiders were as bad as people might think they were last week against the Chiefs. I know they lost by 18, but they started off with a 10-0 lead, and then things just kind of fell apart after that. And Derek Carr had some opportunities to put more points on the board, but interceptions ended up being an issue in that game. I could see them playing a little better against the Vikings, but even all that said, I'm still probably going to go with the Vikings. I would like it if this was a -7 type game for them. The 7.5, 8 line. I'm not in love with that. I probably won't end up betting on this one. But if I had to choose one, I'd probably go with the Vikings right now, just because they have the superior roster.
Yeah, I'm not enthusiastic about this game either. You're right about them having the superior roster, and I agree that Kirk Cousins is the weak link on that team, despite the fully guaranteed contract. I think if you were to give them truth serum and ask them if they regret giving him that much money, I think they admit it to doing so. But Kirk Cousins, throughout his career, he's struggled in big games. He's choked in big moments, but he's done well in these gimme games against bad teams. So I think this could be a game where the Vikings just jump all over the Raiders and beat them by like 20 points or something. It just seems like they match up well against the Raiders. Oakland's defense is not good, especially with Jonathan Abram out for the year or out for a while. I don't think they're going to be able to stop the Viking receivers. And Dalvin Cook looks great. I know he's probably going to get hurt at some point, but right now, like the way he's running, he looks like the best running back in the NFL. Like the way he just eludes tacklers and just breaks tackles. Like he's just amazing. And so I don't think the Raiders have the personnel to stop the Vikings. And I feel like this is a coaching mismatch too. You have Mike Zimmer versus John Gruden, and like Gruden used to be a great coach, but I feel like the game is passing by a little bit. And Zimmer is 53-28 against the spread in his career, which is just amazing. So I'll be on the Vikings here, but I'm not going to bet this game. I'm kind of similar to you. Like if this were -7 still, I might have some interest, but it's moved past 7. I know the Sharps have moved it, but 8.5 is not the same. So I'm going to be in the Vikings for non-wager.
Yeah, no, I agree. It's funny too though that we're haggling over like a half a point now, but like I think the next two games we're going to discuss, we're going to be like, oh yeah, I would take these guys like -40 if that was what I had to do. So. But the Vikings are definitely the right side in this one.
Yeah, that's. I think you're onto something there. The Jets are at the Patriots. This line opened up -21.5. It's up to -22.5. Actually, -23 at Pinnacle. So if you're shopping for that +23, you can get it at Pinnacle for the Jets. But you have to be out of the country because you can't use Pinnacle in the U.S. 91% of the money is on the Patriots right now. No one's betting the Jets. Are you betting the Jets?
No. It's Luke Falk against the Patriots. Not much more needs to be said than that. The Patriots have had a historically good defensive performance to start the year. They've allowed 3 total points. They're outscoring their opponents by like 70-plus points. And it's not – I mean, they played the Dolphins. Yes, that's a bad team. But they blew out the Steelers. And so, like, that's still a good team. The Jets are a bad team with Luke Falk at quarterback. They couldn't do anything against the Browns. They couldn't do anything with Trevor Siemian in the game either. Like, they have some good players. Le'Veon Bell will, make them able to move the offense a little bit. But Luke Falk is like, he's not going to make the Jets win this game. They're not going to score much. The Patriots defense is so good. I would take the spread. I don't know if I'd put a lot on it, but after what they did to the Dolphins, I'd be more comfortable doing like 2 units. So
nice. I'm actually on the Jets here. I'm not going to bet them at all, though. Like they're so bad. Like, I mean, Luke Falk, like you said it against Bill Belichick, just seems like the mismatch of the century. But unlike the Dolphins, the Jets are actually going to try, and I think that's a big difference. For me, it really depends on if C.J. Mosley and Quinnen Williams play, because the Jets defense it's so much better with those two guys, especially Mosley. We saw what happened to them in week 1 when Mosley left. They were shutting out the Bills, who were a good team. It was 60-0. Mosley left, and all of a sudden they couldn't stop Josh Allen or Devin Singletary, and The Bills won 17-16. So it really, I mean, if Mosley and Williams play, I'm definitely going to be on the Jets. I'm not going to bet them still, but I'll be on the Jets. If both of them are out, I'll probably join you on the Patriots. But either way, I'm not going to bet this game. This line just way too high for a team against, considering that the Jets are going to try. If they were like the Dolphins, I'd be like, okay, yeah, definitely on the Patriots. But the Jets will put forth some effort here. And, I kind of think back to 2007 when the Patriots had that great team that won 16-0 in the regular season. They were minus 21 on Sunday night against the Eagles. As Donovan McNabb was out, I believe A.J. Feely started for the Eagles. And I remember considering that line way too high. But this one's even higher, and it's earlier in the season, and it just seems like too outrageous to me. So I'm not going to lay the 22.5 unless the Jets are missing the key players.
Yeah, I can see the case for that. My argument was a little bit based off the fact that the Browns, who I don't think are a very good team, just beat the Jets by 20 points. But again, if you put Mosley and Williams back on the field, they could probably limit the Patriots offense a little more. I mean, the Patriots offense was not too sharp in the first half against Miami. They got 2 pick sixes. So there is a case to be made against this line, but just the idea of betting on Luke Falk to me, even if those guys are playing, is just horrifying. So, and I'm a biased Patriots fan too, so I'm going to probably bet on this game. We'll see if I regret it, and if I'll be like, I'll never bet a line this high again, except against the Dolphins. But yeah, I get why you'd be reluctant to bet on this line, is what I'm trying to say.
Yeah, think about it this way: if it's 38-10 with like 4 minutes to go in the fourth quarter, and Luke Falk has the ball, and the Patriots aren't really trying anymore, and then he throws a backdoor touchdown, like Le'Veon Bell catches a pass and he runs like 20 yards and he catches a touchdown. It's 38-17, which means the Patriots aren't covering. Like that just seems like outrageous to me, doesn't it?
Yeah, you know what? I guess seeing like the number 22.5 alone isn't as scary as when you like contextualize them in those NFL scores. So maybe I'll reconsider that, but I think I'm going to stick with it. Well, I'll keep an eye on the Mosley injury though, because and the Williams one too, because those definitely would have an impact.
Yeah, it's such a big deal. All right, last of the early games, the Dolphins are at the Cowboys. Cowboys open up minus 17, but apparently that was too low because it moved up to minus 21.5. Ton of money on the Cowboys, predictably. I don't know any sane individual who's betting the Dolphins, but are you?
No. They just traded Minka Fitzpatrick. They've traded everyone who is good. They're clearly tanking. They're not going to try. The Cowboys have played so well. And, the Cowboys are coming off a road win against the Redskins. They're 2-0 in the division, and now they have an opportunity to just absolutely demolish the Dolphins in front of a home crowd. They can't pass up on this because the amount of hype it would build for the Cowboys as playoff and Super Bowl contenders, it's just too much. They're going to pour it on the Dolphins. They're going to put on a show for their home crowd. And I can't fathom how the Dolphins are going to stop the Cowboys or slow them down.
I don't either. I mean, they're not trying. Like, did you see that play where Ryan Fitzpatrick threw to Kalen Ballage like as a pass, the short toss, and then Ballage he won nothing of it, so he just ducked out of the way rather than catching the pass. Unbelievable! Like I've never seen anything like that.
Yeah, he literally at first I was like, oh, he didn't know the ball was coming to him, but he was like, I'm like 18 yards short of the line to gain. I'm just not even going to try. It's pretty embarrassing to watch.
I've never seen anything like this in the NFL. The NBA, I've seen it. Sixers. They started a guy named Henry Sims at center at one point. Like they were trying to lose on purpose. The Spurs that year before they got Tim Duncan, when David Robinson got injured, they were tanking too. This has never happened in the NFL, like where a team just blatantly trying to lose. So I don't see how you can take the Dolphins here. And what's funny is that last week I asked you what number would you need to confidently bet the Dolphins? And you said anything above 30. I think I said like 31-ish. So we were both in the same range. Like that wouldn't have covered against the Patriots because they lost 43-0. So I want to ask you again, what number would you need to confidently bet like a good amount on the Dolphins in this game?
The line's just going to keep moving up, but now they're on the road in Dallas after a 43-0 loss to the Patriots. I think the Cowboys are a little worse than the Patriots as a team. but I mean 35, 36. I think 36 at this point. Like we're going over 5 touchdowns at this point. I just do not trust the Dolphins to score, let alone lose a game by less than 5 touchdowns, which is shocking to ever have that sentence come out of my mouth. Are you thinking the same thing, or are you even higher than me?
I'm probably in the same range. Although now that I think about it, if a plus 35 is sitting there, plus 36 is sitting there, I don't think I'm clicking like bet 200 to win 220 in my sports book, or 300 to win 330, or 330 to win 300. I don't think I'm doing that. Like I just don't think I'm doing that. Like a number for me to confidently bet, like make like a 500 bet on the Dolphins, it would probably have to be like plus 42. Like it really would, because they're not trying. Like they just don't care. Like they're not trying to win. So like it's just Timothy J or D on our chat said he would go plus 40. I think I'm in the same range. Like it would have to be like 6 touchdowns, something like that. Like it's just so bad. So with that in mind, like even though these spreads are ridiculous, like should we just bet against the Dolphins every week?
I think it's trending that way. I mean, the best way we could have done that was after the first week to have bet them to go 0-16, which I regret not doing. But I mean, I still would consider it at this point, because who are they going to lose to? Like the easiest game on their schedule is probably against the Redskins. Maybe if they play the Jets while Sam Darnold's out too. I don't know about that, if that's going to happen. But again, like you said, if they're not trying, like they're going to purposely blow those games. So I like the 0-16 bet. If you could find it somewhere, I'd put some money on that, just because it seems like they want that to happen.
Yeah, well, I'll one up that. Like, not only will they go 0-16, maybe they go 0-16 against the spread.
That would be remarkable. If they could pull that off, that might be more impressive than going completely defeated, or I guess depressing would be the better way to put it. It would be depressing.
Yeah, I think it really depends on how high they make these spreads for them. Like if like 30, if something in the 30s starts showing up, like at some point they'll cover like by accident. They'll have a kickoff return for a touchdown or something weird. But at minus 21.5, like it's really something I'm considering for a super contest pick. I never thought I would do that, but again, this team's not trying. So like maybe we should take advantage of it. I don't know. All right, before we move on to the late games, should note that we're sponsored by DraftKings. So you can go to DraftKings.com and enter in promo code Walter Football. That's one word, Walter Football, for a bonus at their first deposit. So you get to play contests for free. So why not join up with that promo code? All right, the Giants at the Buccaneers. Buccaneers open up minus 6.5. It's still 6.5. And the public is slightly leaning toward the Giants, although that might change based on the news we had today. So if you haven't heard, Daniel Jones has been named the starting quarterback over Eli Manning, and Eli finishes his mediocre career at 116 and 116. Very fitting, I think. So what are your thoughts on this game?
I think -7 for the Bucs is way too high. That just feels like a massive overreaction. I know they beat the Panthers in Charlotte, but Cam Newton looked horrible and very injured, and they lost by 14 or so to the 49ers in week 1 at home. I think the Giants could pretty easily cover this if their offense plays well. I happen to like Daniel Jones quite a bit. He was my top-rated quarterback in this last class. I really don't get what the hatred for him. I mean, he was based off of what people were saying before the draft. They did not have to take him number 6 overall, but the hatred for him as a player after that was mind-boggling to me. He looked good in the preseason. I think he's better than Eli at this point, but of course, it's always risky to bid on a rookie in his first start. So that's where my main concern in this game lies. That's why I may not bet on it. But I do love that +7 number for the Giants. So I might put a unit or two on there just so I can continue to captain the Daniel Jones hype train, see what he can get done. And but at the same time, Todd Bowles is a great defensive coordinator, and he might have the Buccaneers ready to play. So this is a pretty tough game, in my opinion. I don't want to say it would be easier to pick if Eli was starting, because I never feel confident betting Eli. But I'm curious as to what your thoughts are.
Yeah, I love this move. when they took him at 6, I thought they could have traded down or maybe got him in at 17, or even at 17, they could have traded up because, they could have walked away from the draft with Ed Oliver and then Daniel Jones. Like that would have been huge, or someone like Ed Oliver, maybe the Josh Allen, even, like that would have been enormous for them. So I thought if they took like Josh Allen at 6 and then 17, they moved up past Miami at 13 to moved up to like 12 or 11. They could have gotten both, and I think that would have been the best move. But like my hatred for that 6th pick wasn't on Daniel Jones, it's because they could have gotten a better player in addition to Jones. So with that in mind, I mean, he was amazing in the preseason. He was 29 or 34. The one issue he had was ball security. He fumbled, I believe, 3 times, and then he fumbled when he stepped into action in week 1. So yeah, not a surprise to see a rookie quarterback fumbling the ball. It's going to happen, and it's at least something. It's correctable. And you got to like this matchup against the Buccaneers. The Buccaneers don't have that good of a defense outside of their defensive line, and the Giants actually have a good offensive line for once. Like it's been a while, but they actually protect well for the most part. So I like their ability to keep Daniel Jones protected. He should be able to move the ball with Saquon Barkley. Evan Ingram has a great matchup here against the Buccaneer defense that couldn't stop Greg Olsen. So I like that. The one thing for me is that Sterling Shepard would need to play because the Giants wouldn't have any downfield weapons otherwise. So if Shepard plays, I'm going to be on the Giants for a few units here. I know the Giants defense is not very good, but Jameis Winston just seems to implode in the red zone. Can't trust him at all. And this Buccaneers team, they're coming off an upset win on Thursday night. Like they're going to be reading their press clippings. And I think they're going to be a little overhyped here. Like the advanced spread in this game was Buccaneers -3.5. So this moved 3 points just because of a win over a team with an injured quarterback. Just doesn't seem to make sense to me. And then on top of that, the Buccaneers play the Rams next week. So they could be looking ahead a little bit. So with all that in mind, I really like the Giants if Shepard plays. If Shepard doesn't play, still going to be on the Giants, but maybe a very small bet. So it really depends on his availability.
Yeah, that point on Winston is one of the reasons that I'm strongly considering the Giants, and I'll probably end up betting on them for a unit or two. But Winston's one of those quarterbacks who he could throw 5 first-half interceptions and get benched for Blaine Gabbert. Like it has happened. Well, not the bench for Blaine Gabbert part, but we've seen him throw a lot of interceptions before and get benched at halftime. So that's the ultimate, like, if I'm afraid of the Giants defense, well, Jameis Winston might do this. And if he can't play well, their whole offense just doesn't work. So, I think the Giants are the right side. I would be more confident if Shepard plays, though, because he's really an underrated receiver. And without him, they don't have any weapons aside from Barkley and Ingram.
Yeah, Winston single-handedly won someone $1 million in DraftKings $1 Million Maker because the 49ers defense was in the winning lineup because of the two pick sixes. So, yeah, you're right. I mean, he could easily have a 5 interception game. He's definitely capable of that. So we've had more quarterback news in this next game. Panthers at the Cardinals. This game's completely off the board. You actually texted me earlier today, saying that you wanted to lock in a team. I won't spoil it, but yeah, you wanted to lock in this game, and then you couldn't because Cam Newton is injured. We all knew he was injured, but now he's missing practice, so it seems to be getting worse. I thought maybe with 9 days off, he might be able to heal, but it seems to be, worse now. So what are your thoughts here?
Yeah, so I was all over the Cardinals with that +3 number. I was actually writing up the notes I used during this podcast. I was on the Panthers-Cardinals notes, and I was like, man, this spread seems really bad. I'm going to bet on this now. And then right when I did that, I got a notification on my phone that Cam Newton was going to be out. And I was like in the process of hitting confirm bets. And when I did that, they were like, it's no longer available. And I'm like, this is devastating. I would have locked in Cardinals +3 against what's appearing to be probably Kyle Allen. And I actually like Kyle Allen. I think he's a good backup. But it wouldn't have affected how I would bet this game. Just if you look at how the Cardinals have played through 2 games, Kyler Murray's 2-0 against the spread. They haven't played particularly well at any point, but late in games, they've had a chance to win. They've had a chance to win against the Lions with that big comeback. They had a chance to win against the Ravens. if they played better in the red zone. We had talked about that a little bit earlier. But one of the stats that I look at in games like this where it's a field goal type spread is when has the team been scoring? And the Cardinals have been scoring a lot in the second half. In fact, 35 of their 44 points this season have come in the second half, or overtime. So I was thinking that even if the Panthers got out to a lead, they know how to get back in the game, or the Cardinals would know how to do it. So I was going to trust Kyler Murray +3. Now that's unavailable, I'm interested to see what the line is. I still like the Cardinals here. I think they'll keep it close, but if they're favored, I'm not going to probably bet on them. It's tough because I loved them as underdogs. I don't know if I would like them if they're favored.
Yeah, I agree with that. I was wondering where I was going to go with this game because it really depended on Newton's status. You know, I thought with the 9 days, as I said before, I thought that would give him a chance to heal. And Newton at 100%, I feel like could beat the Cardinals on the road here. I think Arizona's offensive line is not very good, and Carolina's pass rush has gotten much better this season. It's actually like the only aspect of their team that's functioning well right now outside of McCaffrey and Greg Olsen. But with Newton out, you can't really trust that. So I don't know what the sign's going to be with Kyle Allen if Allen plays. I imagine the Cardinals, like you said, will be favored. If it's -3 or less, I'm comfortable with the Cardinals pick. If it's even 4 or less, I think I'm comfortable with that. But anything more than that, I think is too many points for a team that's, overall not very good. They're missing their top 2 cornerbacks. They can't defend the middle of the field. And as I said before, their offensive line is not very good. So I think this is if it's like 4.5 or more, I think this is a game where the Panthers could keep this close. But if it's 4 or less, I think I'd be on the Cardinals. So that's where I am right now.
Yeah, no, it definitely makes sense. My whole thing is like you get that backup quarterback. We saw it last year when Nick Mullins took on the Raiders. You get a guy who's kind of an unknown in Kyle Allen. Could he spark that team a little bit on offense? That would be my one worry if the Cardinals are favored, betting on them. But I still think that if Newton plays or doesn't play, the Cardinals are the better side.
Yeah, with Kyle Allen, he actually looked like not bad at the end of last year. He went 4 for 4 in Week 16 against the Falcons, and obviously small sample size. But then the next week against the Saints, granted the Saints didn't need to win that game. He actually outplayed Teddy Bridgewater. So I thought highly of him going into the offseason, but then they spent a 3rd-round pick on Will Grier. And Will Grier, he was awful in the preseason. Kyle Allen was better, but then again, Kyle Allen wasn't very good in the preseason. I was a little disappointed by him, but he did win the backup job, and I think he's slightly competent. So I don't think he's the worst guy they could have. If they had to start Will Grier, I would absolutely be all over Arizona. And the line might even be lower because Grier is kind of a popular name. All right. Anyway, so we don't know what to do with that. So, I'll have updates on the website, waltzfootball.com. So check back later in the week. So this next game is a game I like a lot. The Saints are at the Seahawks. This line opened up Seahawks -6. It's down to -4.5. Even though the public is way on Seattle, the line's moving down, which indicates sharp movement. I actually locked this game in already. So I'm curious to see if we're on the same side.
I think that we're going to end up on the same side here. I don't know what your pick is, but the Seahawks are 2-0, but they've won their games by a combined 3 points over the Bengals and the Pittsburgh Steelers with an injured Ben Roethlisberger and Mason Rudolph as their quarterback. So I'm very much leaning towards going with the Saints, even without Drew Brees on the road in Seattle. If Bridgewater is going to be the starter, I mean, obviously there's the chance that he might not play well. But in 2015, Bridgewater's last full season as a starter, Minnesota was 14-3 against the spread with him starting every game, which is mind-boggling to me. They were the best team in the league against the spread. And I know that was a really long time ago, but I think that this is going to be a closer game than people are anticipating. The Saints have a better roster overall than the Seahawks. Seahawks have the better quarterback, so Russell Wilson might be able to win this game. But I could envision a world where the Saints can jump out to a lead. They're kind of amped up that Drew Brees is out. They want to win some games for him so that they're not out of playoff contention when he comes back. So I had it. I had the spread listed as 4.5. If it's coming down, I still like the Saints +4, +4.5 in this game. I'll probably lock that in shortly too. And the other interesting thing the Saints can do is they can mix Taysom Hill in a little bit more. You kind of have more freedom to do that. Some will argue you should start Taysom Hill. I could see that as well. But Taysom Hill can be mixed in some trick packages more, so that'll keep the Seahawks off balance. So I like the Saints in this one.
Yeah, I was going to ask you the roster question that I asked you in the Falcons Colts game. So outside of quarterback and linebacker, are the Seahawks better anywhere than the Saints?
No, probably not.
Yeah, I can't think of a position. So yeah, the Saints have the better roster. They're getting more than a field goal, actually more than 4 points, depending on where you're looking right now. At last glance at BetUS, they were +5. So that's worth looking into. So yeah, we're getting the better team with points. Yeah, Bridgewater's starting, sure, but since the Seattle secondary allowed Andy Dalton to throw for 400 yards, they couldn't stop John Ross. And then last week, Mason Rudolph would have had the comeback. I think the Steelers would have won with Mason Rudolph if it wasn't for Dante Moncrief dropping that ball that turned into an interception. But I saw a funny meme. I don't know who sent it to me, but it was actually it was my friend Bill. It's like some babies like in a nursery, and like the Steelers are standing there, and like the text says like, "Don't let Dante Moncrief hold the baby," because he's just so bad. He's 5 drops, so hopefully he doesn't play this week. But yeah, I mean, I like the Saints overall. The Seahawks can't block; they can't cover. This line just it seems like if the Seahawks win, it'll be by 3, like that, or 3 or less. Like doesn't it like? I don't see why the Seahawks will be favored by more than that. So I love the Saints here. Outside of the Lions, they're my top pick of the week.
Yeah, no, I would definitely go with the Saints. And just to touch on Moncrief, because why is he the number 2 receiver in Pittsburgh? I know he has nothing to do with this game, but like I said it before the season, and I know everyone knew this. He has hands like bricks, and lo and behold, he's already cost the Steelers a game. So, just please, Steelers, if you're for some reason watching this, take him out of the lineup. But play James Washington, play Deontay Johnson. Don't make us watch Moncrief drop passes every single time he's thrown to.
I can see Mike Tomlin watching this and be like, "Oh, that's a good idea. Maybe I should just mention him." Yeah, I don't. It makes no sense. And then you have Mason Rudolph, who played with James Washington in college. So just make Washington the number 2 receiver. It's not that difficult,
Yeah, for sure.
But then again, we're not coaching the NFL, so like, what do we know? All right, the next game, Texans at the Chargers. The Chargers open up -3.5. It's down to -3. Tons of public action on the Texans. So the Texans are a public dog here. So who do you like this game?
I don't know why the Texans would be a public dog in this game. They almost just lost to Gardner Minshew. And I know the Chargers don't have any home field advantage, and I know that the Chargers just lost to the Lions, but I have no faith in the Texans' ability to win this game or even possibly keep it close. Watson's already been sacked 10 times, which again is leading the league. That's 72 times in the last 18 regular season games he's played, which is ridiculous. And I know the Chargers don't have a good offensive line either, and they're dealing with some bad secondary injuries. So, Watson might be able to throw a lot on them because I think they put Adrian Phillips on IR, or he's out for a while with a forearm. He was replacing Derwin James. But Watson's only 3-6 in September, and I just can't get over the fact that they almost lost to the Jaguars last week and only scored 13 points. So I'm heavily leaning towards the Chargers here at -3. Also, I don't usually do this again, but I would definitely consider taking the under here. It's an under 48, but if both teams are constantly under pressure, they're going to have a tough time scoring. I wouldn't do anything more than the unit on that, but I would probably go 2 or 3 units on the Chargers -3 because, again, I just don't trust the Texans at all.
Yeah, the Texans scored 13, but if it wasn't for that strip sack on Minshew, they would have scored 6. So they weren't moving the ball at all, and I was kind of like wondering like what happened, because it's not like you can say the Jaguars have a great defense. They stopped them because the Jaguars are missing Yannick Ngakoue, they're missing AJ Bouye, they're missing Telvin Smith. Their safeties aren't very good, and you saw what the Chiefs did to them the previous week. So I expected the Texans to score into the 20s in that game. It was really disappointing to see them score 13, and if Leonard Fournette stretches out, they lose that game outright, and they're 0-2 right now. So I was thinking about it. I was like, I even rewatched that game twice, and like outside of some horrible time management at the end of the first half, I think Bill O'Brien forgot he had 2 timeouts. Outside of that, like there was no reason for the Texans not to score, and I was like, what could be? And then it kind of like hit me like last night. Deshaun Watson might be injured because of what happened in week 1 when he hit the ground hard. I know he had that great comeback, but that could have been a pain injection mixed with adrenaline. And then maybe this is something that got worse during the week. Maybe he felt bad. So if Watson's not 100%, and just based on how he played last week, he was missing receivers. Like he was just not himself. And he didn't run the ball either, by the way. He only had like 5 rushing yards or something. He just didn't look like himself. And if that's the case here, I don't know how he's going to survive against these edge rushers the Chargers have. The Texans won't be able to block them. Even Laramie Tunsil against one of them just seems like a mismatch in the Chargers' favor. So I like the Chargers a lot here. The fact that they don't have a home field advantage would be a concern, I think, most of the time. But the Texans haven't been around for very long. It's been 17 years. It's not like they have this like long like fan base that like, a lot of Texas transplants live in LA. So they're going to go to the game. Like you see, like even the Dolphins, when they're bad, they're going to have a lot of fans there because a lot of people are Miami fans from the Marino days. The Texans don't have that long time fan base. So I don't know if they're going to be a lot of Texans fans in this game. So I think that makes me feel better about it. So yeah, overall, I think the spread is kind of like too short a little bit. The computer model says the Chargers should be -4. So a little bit of value there overall. But yeah, the Texans are not a good team. They're not playing well. They're not coached well. And I trust the Chargers more, even though they lost to Detroit.
Yeah. And just because we're talking about how bad the Texans are, who do you think wins the AFC South at this point? Because I did my power rankings for the NFL. I think you did yours today too. And I didn't have a single AFC South team above 19. So I'm wondering who you think might come away with that division.
It's tough. I the highest, I have the Texans ranked highest right now, but because they're so poorly coached, I could see them losing. And I think the Colts are still in play. I think they have the best roster. Jacoby Brissett, obviously not ideal. He's the quarterback, but we saw Blake Bortles take an AFC South team to the AFC Championship. So if that's the case, why can't Brissett do it?
Yeah, no, I'm leaning Colts right now too, but I was just curious to see what you think.
Yeah, no, I think if you swap coaches, like if you swap Bill O'Brien with Frank Reich, Fremont Frank Reich, as I'm calling him now, after that ballsy 4th and inches, I think the Texans win it going away. Like, can you imagine Frank Reich coaching up Deshaun Watson? It'd be insane.
It'd be so good. I wish that was the case, but
yeah,
I'll take him with Jacoby Brissett. I like Jacoby Brissett, so.
Yeah, I think he's okay. All right, last late afternoon game, the Steelers at the 49ers. This line opened up 49ers -7. Looks like sharp money has taken this down to -6.5 because the public is about like 2/3 on the 49ers. Yeah, this is another game kind of like the Saints where they lost their starting quarterback, but Roethlisberger's out for the year on like 6 weeks. So who do you like in this game?
I still think this is another big overreaction game in terms of the line. I'm leaning on the Steelers here at the +6.5, +7 number. I think they're going to want to prove that they can win without Roethlisberger. And I know that the 49ers have won 2 games to start the season, and they've done it in 2 very different ways. They won basically defensively against the Bucs, and they won offensively last week against the Bengals by running roughshod all over them. But the Bengals couldn't tackle. And, if you take out those 2 Jameis Winston pick sixes against the Buccaneers, it's a much closer game. So I think if Mason Rudolph can avoid mistakes and can get the passing game going a little bit more than it's been in the first 2 games, I think the Steelers will find a way to at least stay competitive. And they're desperate for a win at this point because they just traded their first-round pick for Minka Fitzpatrick. So they have absolutely no incentive to lose out this year, unlike the Dolphins who are tanking. Just had to throw that in there one more time. But the Steelers definitely are going to be trying to win. So I can see them winning this outright. If not, I think they at least cover the spread on the road. I'll be interested to see how Rudolph does, though, because that'll be a big factor in this one.
Yeah, it's hard to gauge what Rudolph did last week because he was playing a team that allowed 400 yards to Andy Dalton. So that's something I'd mention again. I still can't believe that Andy Dalton threw for 400 yards in an NFL game, and John Ross went nuts. Like that's just how misleading. I feel like results against the Seahawks can't really be trusted based on how bad their secondary is. But I don't think Mason Rudolph's that bad. So I watched every snap of his in the preseason. I thought he looked pretty good, a lot better than Joshua Dobbs. So I kind of have a little bit of faith in Rudolph, and I like teams that good teams that lose their starting quarterbacks. You touched on it. They seem to perform at like 110% efficiency, because if a team is good, they obviously have good players, and like good players will step up when they need to, and they definitely need to with Roethlisberger out. They'll be out to prove, like you said, that they can win, and I think that's key. Meanwhile, you have the 49ers. I like the 49ers, but as 7-point favorites, 6.5-point favorites, they just haven't really been in this position before. They kind of were favored by that much, maybe a little bit less last year against Detroit in week 2, and Detroit covered the spread, even though Detroit was not a good team back then. But now they're big favorites over a kind of like a perennial playoff contender, just because their quarterback is out. And so you said this was an overreaction. I completely agree. I think this line's a little bit too high. I think it should be like in the 5.5, 6 range. So we're getting good value, not like great value, but like just like decent value with the Steelers. So I like the Steelers here for 4 units. If this were +7, I'd like them a lot more. As I said before, 7 is the second most likely result in an NFL game. So I would need +7 at worst -115 to make this a 5-unit bet. But I think 4 units is still pretty good at +6.5. I like the Steelers.
Yeah, and I know I've been calling the 49ers like the most okay team in football the last couple of weeks. They're definitely better than okay right now. They're starting to come together, and if Jimmy Garoppolo can continue to improve the more he plays, I think there's a legitimate shot that the 49ers could battle for a wild card spot. So I'm interested to see how they do.
Yeah, it's a tough division though. I think the division's what, like 7-1-1, 6-1-1 right now. It's kind of insane.
Yeah, they're like if the Cardinals had been able to pull out those 2 late wins, they'd be undefeated the whole division, which is insane.
Yeah, I don't think I've ever seen a division all 2-0 after 2 weeks, and they were close. All right. Speaking of the NFC West, the Rams are at the Browns Sunday Night Football. Rams open up -2.5. It's actually moved up to -3. A ton of public action on the Rams, but looks like there's no sharp money coming on the Browns right now. That could change. But yeah, right now, who do you think? Who do you like in this game?
I like the Rams. The Rams are, I think, 11-7 against the spread on the road with Sean McVay as their coach, and they've been pretty good through 2 games. Meanwhile, I have not liked what I've seen out of the Browns. Specifically, Baker Mayfield has not been good. It's been since that 3rd preseason game against the Buccaneers. He's been under pressure, and he hasn't performed well. If you take out that long completion to Odell Beckham from the last night's game, the Browns only score like 16 points, I think, or something along those lines. They just don't look quite right. I don't think Freddie Kitchens has been particularly calling a good game so far either. I think he's ignoring the run a little bit too much. I'm saying this is a Nick Chubb fantasy owner again. I want to just remind people of that. I am a little biased, but Mayfield was throwing a bunch while they were well ahead in the 4th quarter of that game. And I kind of think that has a little bit to do with how he's performed so far. He just hasn't looked quite right. He's missed some open receivers. He's just been a hair off. So I think the Rams are going to end up winning this game. The Browns, I know people are still big into them, but we can't read too much into that win over the Jets because Simeon and Falk were the quarterbacks, and they were missing 2 of their best defensive players. So I think the Rams are able to pull out a 3+ point win here. So I would bet a couple of units on them. And basically, until the Browns offense proves that it can be effective, I'm going to be fading the Browns.
Here's a stupid question. Was that the least impressive 23-3 win of all time? It was.
Yeah, it absolutely was. That's the only way to put it. And the only way it impressed me was how quickly I went from winning my fantasy game to losing it on that Odell Beckham catch. Like, that was the only play of the game that was anything really above average, I thought.
Yeah, it was mixed for me. I lost a fantasy match on that Beckham catch, but I did win a fantasy game on the Nick Chubb run. So it kind of goes both ways. It's weird when you have 6 fantasy teams. It's like root for one guy, but not too well. It's like, it's weird. Yeah, I'm with you on the Rams here. I wanted to get to the Browns because they're a +3 home underdog Monday on national TV. There's so much money coming in on the favorite. And I feel like the Rams are just an overrated team. They don't block well. The interior of their offensive line is not very good at the moment, and Jared Goff gets phased by pass rush. So it feels like you should be able to get to the Browns, but I just can't do it. Like they haven't looked good at all this year. I thought they were overrated coming into the season, and yeah, you're right. I mean, they scored 16, as you said. If it wasn't for that Beckham catch, was just kind of like a short pass that he took 89 yards. Yeah, they scored 16 points against a team missing C.J. Mosley that allowed 17 points to the Bills in one quarter. So it's like how impressive is this team really? Baker Mayfield's passes are all over the place. He's so inaccurate. I mean, it's weird. Like he'll make a great throw, and then his next three passes are just like wildly inaccurate. It just I don't know what's going on with him. He's just not playing as well as he did at the end of last year. And then Freddie Kitchens, I agree. I think he's in over his head right now. And you have Sean McVay going against him with an extra day to prepare compared to Kitchens. Just feels like McVay should be able to coach circles around Freddie Kitchens. So I'm on the Rams. I don't want to bet into this public money. Like I said, there's so much money on the Rams. I think I'm just going to sit this one out. If this game gets to +3.5, I'll at least think about the Browns. But at +3 is not appealing enough for me to make any sort of wager on them.
Yeah, well, one thing I want to touch on from the Browns too is like Myles Garrett's been a beast so far for them, but he's also made some really undisciplined plays, going offside, roughing the passer. So, like, even if he starts to rattle Jared Goff, if he gets the attention of officials, I think like that could have a negative impact on him if he keeps getting caught in that way, because it's the same way for how Michael Bennett is. Like, he'll try to guess a snap count and jump off sides, and that makes refs look out for that more. So if Garrett keeps doing that, he's going to get called for that stuff.
Oh yeah, for sure. And then if you give McVay another chance, he's going to take advantage of you. So I think this is just way too much of a coaching mismatch, especially with McVay having extra time. Just seems like just way overwhelming in the Rams favor. So Monday night game, Bears at the Redskins. What a thriller this one's going to be. The Bears open up -4, still -4. Although there are some -3.5s out there. I thought the public was going to be way all over the Bears, but it's kind of even money here. So what do you think about this game?
I think this is a no-brainer, Bears. I cover the Redskins. They're a mess right now. There is the only good thing about them right now is that they signed a guy in the practice squad that I went to high school with. So congrats, Drew Belcher, for getting that nod today. But pretty much that team is a mess. Jay Gruden is probably on his way out the door at some point in the near future. I'd be shocked if he lasts till the end of the season. They haven't been able to stick to the run. Their top rushers in the past 2 games have had 18 and 25 yards on 10 carries apiece. And just the Bears have such a better defense. And even if Mitch Trubisky and the offense haven't been playing well, they're going to put up points on the Redskins. The Redskins might not score much at all against the Bears except for garbage time. I'm not going to bet heavily on this one. I'll probably do like a unit on the Bears just because of the possibility of a backdoor touchdown from Case Keenum. What I would bet on is the under. I know 41.5 is a really low number, but given how the offenses have performed so far, probably actually going to bet a unit or two on that. So again, I don't always do that, but there are a couple over-unders I like this week, and that's definitely one of them.
Yeah, you're more confident in this game than I am. We're both on the same side, so I would take the Bears. But betting more than a field goal on the road with Mitchell Trubisky just scares the hell out of me. Like, I agree with you that the Redskins are going to have trouble scoring, at least offensively. But I mean, would it surprise either of us if Mitchell Trubisky throws off his back foot twice for pick sixes? Like, could happen, And then all of a sudden, the Redskins are up 14-0, and then the Bears eke out a win. They win 17-14 and don't cover. Like, I think it's kind of a scenario that I could see happening. But man, the Redskins are bad. I don't want to bet on them either. I don't want to pick them. As bad as Trubisky is, I would still take the Bears. Just the Redskins are terrible. And this stat really stands out. I'm not big on trends. I used to be not big on trends, but the Redskins in Monday Night Football games, their last 18 Monday Night Football games as hosts, they're 1-17 against the spread on Monday Night Football. Like, what is happening? Like, I mean, you cover the Redskins, as you said. Like, is there a reason for this? Or can you think of one?
It has to do with coaching to an extent. They've been struggling to replace Joe Gibbs since Joe Gibbs left. Even the second coming of Joe Gibbs wasn't a massive success. So they just can't get out of their own way a lot. They get called for way too many penalties, and I can't fully explain it, but I think it's a lack of discipline and lack of being able to get ready for those big primetime moments. And that's part of the reason is they also haven't had a quarterback who's been able to get it done in primetime moments, because Kirk Cousins sure wasn't able to do it, and Robert Griffin III after his ACL tear wasn't able to do it either. So I think it's the perfect storm of bad coaching and bad quarterbacking.
Yeah, I think you're right. Yeah, it's bad. Like as I said, I'm not big in the trends, but that's something that's in the back of my mind where I'm like, if I even think about taking the Redskins, I'm like, I'm going against this. Like, this kind of ineptitude is just so bad. But yeah, like I said, I'm on the Bears, no units. I don't want to bet on Trubisky. So yeah, it's unfortunate that we get two stinkers on Monday Night Football in a row. Hopefully Week 4's Monday night game is better. And I say that looking at the schedule, and it's Bengals and Steelers. So never mind.
Oh,
At least the Thursday night game should be good with Packers, Eagles at Packers. So that'll be a nice one at least. But yeah, that's it for this week. So do you want to plug anything?
Yeah, I got my power rankings up on rigosrag.com. Patriots are at the top of that list. You can check out who else is up there, and I do them in weird tiers, so you'll have some surprises there. And if you want to follow me on social media, I'm at Jacob Kamiker on Twitter. I'll be talking about football and betting in the upcoming week. So yeah, there's plenty to talk about this time of year.
Awesome. Yeah, definitely. I'm at waltzerfootball.com or on Twitter at waltzerfootball. So we're going to have pick updates. Fantasy football rankings for week 3 are already posted, but we're going to update them throughout the week. An updated 2020 mock draft tomorrow, incorporating that the Dolphins Steelers trade. So yeah, you can check that out at waltzerfootball.com. But I will talk to you next week.
Okay, sounds good. Talk to you then.